No, the Yemen Civil War is one of those things that I carry with me because I think, again, this is not a partisan statement. I think it's a failure of U.S. foreign policy, and to the extent that we now have what already was the poorest country in the Arab world, which is becoming even poorer, which has been immiserated, which has been destroyed by a campaign that's going on now since 2015, and in which the U.S. probably, more than probably, did not play a sufficient role in trying to, if not prevent it, at least bring it to an end. Why Saudi Arabia intervened? You had this rebel group, the Houthis, who are Shia, but who are not particularly close to Iran historically. Historically, they in fact had not been aligned to Iran. Some of them had been, some of the leadership had been. The more they became on opposite sides from Saudi Arabia, the more they ran to Iran, and the more Iran took advantage of it to provide them with the weapons, training, whatever else support they needed. But originally, they're not a pro-Iranian group, the religious affiliation notwithstanding. They're a very local group that has a long history of fighting. They're based in the north of Yemen. They have a long history of fighting other Yemenis because they feel like they've been marginalized, alienated, neglected. So wars have been going on for quite some time without Iran being particularly involved, or at some times without Saudi Arabia being particularly involved. What has happened since 2015, for a whole host of reasons, is that Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, other countries got involved much more on the former government side, the government that was toppled by the Houthis, and the Houthis have turned to Iran for the kind of support that they felt that was useful to them in fighting this war. And so the point I made to the Saudis and the Emiratis back in 2015 and since then is they may think that by fighting this war, they are keeping Iran out of their backyard. In fact, the more this war goes on, the more it becomes polarized, the more the Houthis are going to align themselves precisely with those that Saudi Arabia wants to keep out of their neighborhood, and that's the Iranians. So in some ways, it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is not to minimize Iran's involvement. It's not to minimize the degree to which Iran saw a real opportunity here at very low cost, really minimal cost. They could bog Saudi Arabia down in a war that the Saudis thought in 2015 would last for 6 months, and bog them down, bleed them without too many fingerprints and without too much of an investment. So it was an opportunity that Iran seized, but in some ways, some of the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia and UAE, gave them that gift, gave them that opportunity.